Well, I mean, it says I urge everyone to remain calm to ensure. Hold on, oh, geez. I was gonna say, if you want me to do it, I don't know how to become the. Yep, that's what I was gonna say. I don't know how to actually control it, so I can put it on my screen. I will. Oh, geez. Yeah, definitely. I got it. Oh yeah, that sucks. Like I'm trying to think where's the quickest spot for you to go, like uh, a Starbucks. All right, I'll let everyone know. We'll do. All right. Yeah, bye. Hey everybody, Anton is driving to get some cell service right now, and I would start this for everybody, except that I'm not the host and I can't share my screen and all that fun jazz. So he said, give him a few minutes, he'll come on here um, and chat. But I will share something that me and Anton have been talking about and watching, and I think it's highly important for you to take an hour of your life, probably two or three, really. It's about an hour long. It's extremely awesome. It's got great news. You should be sharing to your database and your people. I say watch it a couple times because it's so much information. Me and Heather just sat here this morning and listened to it again. I just typed up so many notes, and it's like by the time we were halfway through it, my brain was just on mush. But this is a great link. I think you guys would be well advised, and I'm sure he will even hit on this when he gets in here. And so there you go. Other than that, Terry, Sean, Amy, Kylie, Nicole, how are you all doing? I can't see anybody, so I'm guessing you guys are all well.
Good. Thanks.
I'm great,
You?
John. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm above ground. That's always a good thing. It's a good sign. Definitely navigating everything like everybody else. I'd say it's been a pretty busy week, not maybe a fruitful week, but a busy week in terms of we wrote an offer that we lost out on. We showed a video property. I set an appointment for a listing. And what else did we do? I feel like there's something. And we have a listing coming live. So if you guys have buyers in the West Ashley area, we would love to do a deal with anybody. How many people in here have been in this business for a few years, just out of curiosity?
Here.
I know you have, Sean.
Oh, okay.
And I know Terry. I guess I'm talking to 3 people. I'm not sure.
I'm new, actually.
Hey.
So hi, I thought I'd turn my video on real quick. I was gonna sit in on this while I ate lunch. That's why I had my camera off.
Good.
But hey, I'm Amy Watson. I'm in the Charleston Mount Pleasant office. Just joined a couple of months ago. Got my license though early 2022. Was
Okay.
just winding down my business that I had so that I could pivot and focus on this full time.
Awesome.
So,
Well,
hi,
welcome,
everyone.
Amy. Yeah, I'm in the
Thank
Mount
you.
Pleasant office too. If you come up the stairs and you take a left, I'm in the think tank. That's where my office is located. So feel free to come
Welcome,
in and say
Amy.
hello.
Yeah. Hi, Terry. Thanks. Yeah, I'm going to be working out of the office more towards the end of January, early February. I own a property in Franklin, North Carolina that was hit by the crazy cold weather that came through over Christmas. And so
Oh, I love Franklin.
isn't it a great town?
Yeah, my wife wants to buy a piece of property there so we can eventually like back and forth it. But the prices in Franklin are pretty insane.
They went up a little bit. If you ever
Because I want to
talk
be close to
more
the downtown. We did an Airbnb walkable to the downtown. And that's
Oh.
like going to the old village of Mount Pleasant and buying a home. And I'm not in that
Yeah.
That's not my second home or investment or any kind of purpose for me. So
Yeah, it's a 9-minute drive from downtown Franklin, but we're in the
That's sweet.
mountains. We have like a killer view. That was what we were looking for. So
That's sweet.
yeah, but it's been a process. So if you ever want to talk Franklin real estate, I'm all about it.
I do actually. I mean, maybe
Awesome.
I don't. My wife does, but it's definitely something that's on one of our vision boards for future. It's not going to be my first investment, but it's going to be one of them for sure.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure y'all know this because you're in real estate, but every time you buy a house, you incur a crazy expense within the first couple months. And
Oh, don't say that.
ours was our well pump broke.
Oh, no.
Because it was like below 0 degrees up there. So we just got water back today. So I'm actually going up there to check on the house and get, it's a short-term rental when we bought it. So it's
Sure.
been really awesome, but it hasn't had people in it for a week or 2 weeks now since Christmas.
Because
So.
you have no water running.
Yeah. So the people who were there, thankfully their stay wrapped up the day the water stopped working. So we didn't
Wow.
have to like rehome them,
Sure.
but we had a contractor in there yesterday and he said there's moldy dishes all
Ugh.
over the kitchen. So I have to go solve that problem. But anyways,
Sounds
I will
fun.
see you in the office starting in February, most likely once I
When you get your
this
stuff
thing
back up
figured
and
out.
running.
Yes.
That's awesome.
hmm
Excuse me.
So, Amy, were you with Keller Williams in Franklin?
No, I live in Charleston.
Okay.
We just started going up to Western North Carolina during the pandemic
Mhm.
and really fell in love with the area. I'm from Minnesota originally. And
Mhm.
Oh, wow.
so then Western North Carolina just kind of reminded me of Minnesota. Not that it's mountainous in Minnesota, but there's a lot of trees, there's a lot of water. It just has a similar landscape. And so I really fell in love with the area and we'd been looking and this opportunity came in October or September and we just kind of pounced on it and finally made the leap to buy a second home or an investment property. And it's been doing really well for us, actually. It was a Verbo property when we bought it, so that was awesome that they had already established that.
Sure.
And if y'all don't know this for your clients, you can absorb a Verbo listing, which is awesome because all the reviews come with you. So we got really fortunate in that sense.
That's not like Airbnb does not do that, I believe.
No.
Yeah, once you buy it, you have to restart everything. So
Yeah,
that's
they're
actually
not
pretty
as friendly.
yeah,
Mhm.
I've
But-
sold to clients stuff. Yeah.
But
Are there lakes near Franklin?
Yeah, there's a couple. There's actually a really big, like, it's a river, but it kind of pools in an area that's kind of lake-esque. But they've got
Okay.
boat rentals, paddle boarding, kayaking, all that stuff right in that area.
No, that's
Okay,
cool.
great.
Mhm.
By the way, I'm Sean. Amy,
Hi, Sean.
welcome.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Where in Minnesota are you from?
Just north of St. Paul.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
I don't know if y'all have ever seen the movie Fargo,
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
but
The wood chipper scene has never left my brain, unfortunately.
Frances
Excuse me for a
McDermott.
second. I gotta
Oh,
take
she
this
was-
from Anton.
Sure. She interviews
Frances
a couple of
McDermott. Yeah, go on, sorry.
yeah, so it's okay. She interviews a couple women in the bar, and they say they're from White Bear Lake, Go Bears, and that's where I went to high school. That's the town I grew up in, so
Oh,
that's
White
how we're
Bear Lake.
famous.
Yeah,
Yeah, White Bear Lake. Are you
Oh,
familiar with Minnesota?
yeah, my dad's from Duluth and my parents met at University of Minnesota, so.
Oh, I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah. But for
Yeah,
that,
my,
yes, I'm familiar. Love
Yeah,
it.
my daughter and son-in-law live in St. Paul.
Yeah, hold on
Oh.
one second. Sure.
Yeah,
Hold
and
on one
I've been to
second.
I've actually been to White Bear Lake before.
I love this. That's amazing. I love Minnesota. I couldn't get, actually, ironically, I have the map of my hometown
Oh, I
behind me
see
on the
that.
wall.
Yeah.
I couldn't get my husband to move to Minnesota though. He's from Virginia. We met in the DC area and he said it was just too cold. So Charleston it is.
He's
I-
right.
Yeah. I do feel like Charleston has such a awesome community vibe though, that's what I really loved about Minnesota. People are just so nice and friendly and welcoming. And so that's what brought us down here. And I visit. He comes with on holidays to Minnesota.
Well, great.
Mhm.
Now you have it to go home to is nice.
Yeah.
Back
Yeah.
home. Not home.
Right. Yeah. Are you all Charleston natives or did you come from?
I'm
somewhere?
actually from Indiana.
Oh, okay. Nice. Another Midwesterner.
Yeah.
And I, Sean, am from Chicago, so Midwesterner. My brother's in Wausau, Wisconsin area,
Oh, nice. Okay. I know where that is.
Yeah. but 18 years in Charleston, to answer that.
Yeah,
Cool.
I've been in Charleston for 38 years. And I actually am in the process of purchasing a home back in Indiana.
Oh, congrats.
Yeah.
Very
Hope it works out.
congrats. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's not a done deal yet, but it's getting closer.
Fantastic.
Mhm.
Her,
Oh,
her
Sean, you
parents
still
are
have
there.
the Midwest accent.
What's that?
Sean still has the Midwest
Yes, she does.
accent.
Yeah, it just
It comes
put me
back when
around
I get to
with someone.
Minnesota.
Well, I heard that Minnesota accent come out when you said that.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. It comes every time I'm around another Midwesterner, all of a sudden the O's and the A's and
Uh-huh.
everything comes back really.
My long A's sound like E's. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah, the bagel gets everyone every time. They're like, it's a what? It's- I
Bagel?
don't know how you're supposed to say it. A bagel? I have to work really hard on that word.
We gave
Yeah.
a shower, or my daughter had a shower in Minnesota, and I responded and left a message. And evidently, I said y'all. I don't
Oh.
usually say that. And when I got to the shower, that she's the one that said y'all, and they evidently played the recording back several times.
That's amazing.
I know it's funny.
It's part of my lexicon now. I definitely say y'all, but I pick up language from everywhere I live. Like Wicked is traditionally up in like the Boston area, but it kind of made its way down to DC. So I say that too. I say y'all. I have terrible Midwest accent when I go home. So that's a hodgepodge.
We adopt to where we are. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I feel like I talk Southern or like I adopt a Southern accent when I talk to people from down here. So it's we're just like chameleons when we live around other
Yes.
people. Mhm.
Yes.
So Patty, I saw you just got on. Anton's having trouble connecting. He's running a little bit late.
Oh, okay. That's good to know.
He's
Oh, hey,
driving,
Patty.
looking for cell coverage.
Okay.
I'm gonna
Does
put
anybody
myself-
know, in case we don't get back to it, the was it a podcast or a web thing that John was talking about that said was so good?
Sorry, it's YouTube, Barry Habib. So I'm sure you watched that one that came out in June. He's Barry Habib, Habib. So
Say
it
that,
links,
say it again, Sean. I couldn't hear you.
yeah, it's by Barry, Barry, Habib, Habib.
Okay.
And he did a similar podcast in June that people watched and rewatched and rewatched. You know, he's very technical. He's in the mortgage industry, but
Okay.
super informative. So it links to YouTube, his YouTube podcast, so to speak, and you could save that
Okay.
if you want to grab the link in the chat. Yeah, so Patty, there's what Anton, or excuse me, what John said in Anton's absence is that he and Anton have been talking quite a bit about Barry Habib's latest market update. It came out 2 weeks ago, and they've watched it several times, and John and Heather watched it again this morning and, you know, listened to it. Obviously, it just has a lot of information. So
That sounds good. Yeah.
yeah,
I am familiar with him. I've heard him before.
yeah, he's one of those, like, how do you do all this? But yeah, it's
Yeah.
impressive.
All right, he's.
Terry, how
Anton's
you
coming in.
doing?
Hold on, y'all. Sorry. We had some technical difficulties. You know, Anton and technology never go along. Sorry, I'm just being facetious. I hung up on him, so I hope he's coming in because he said he was. Terry, how are you? Are you moving, I hear?
You know, I am expanding my business to Indiana.
That's a
very
great way to
excited.
say it. I love it.
Yep. I am, and I am in the process of purchasing a home, which is really exciting for me.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks.
Look for busted frozen pipes, apparently.
I hope not. I
I'm
hope
just
not.
teasing you.
The scary thing about it is the house was built in 1840.
Wow.
I know.
Is that that's a historic home to me, but is it a historic home in Indiana?
It is.
So is
It
it like
is.
a that's
Yeah.
cool.
Actually, the neighborhood, I think 4 out of the 6 homes on the little area where I am were on the Underground Railroad.
Whoa, that's
But not
really
mine.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder. Yeah, that's wild. That's kind of cool.
Hello?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yep.
Would you hurry up, Anton? Hey, nice view.
It looks like you're on the bridge there with the wires
Hello?
behind you. Did you just stop?
We can hear you. I'm gonna text him. Is it not working on your end, Anton? I'll let Anton do the cursor and I'll do all the talking.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, say something, John. Okay, I got you. Sorry. All types of technical issues up here and wherever I'm at. So how's everybody doing this Friday?
Great.
Sorry for the delay. All right. And I know John shared with, I think probably some of the people on the call, but you've got to watch this video a couple times, maybe 3 times, that I'll share. And again, John's watched it and he's taken notes. I've watched it, but it's a great video by Barry Habib, who is, I don't know what his position is at Movement Mortgage, but he is very knowledgeable and able to share kind of market information in a way. And this hour-long YouTube video, I mean, it's packed with about a day's worth of information, but it's great takeaways for your buyers and sellers, and gives you talking points and an understanding of the market. And honestly, a relatively positive outlook on real estate, right, John?
I think so. I mean, he, and again, like going back to this guy, I remember watching him like June, July timeframe, and he was talking about what was going to happen during the third and fourth quarter of our real estate market, and he nailed it. Like he nailed it. In my opinion, I have to go back and find that video, but he nailed it really well. And he did say in that video back last summer what to expect, but he couldn't tell you until he got to towards the end of the year, and the data showed him where he was going. And the data shows like, hey, he's expecting interest rates to go down to about 5%, maybe even below 5% by what do you say, like the first half, after the first half of the year. So probably start trending and then really kind of like go down, which he thinks will open up the floodgates of these showings that aren't going into contracts, and then create a little bit more of a, more demand out there. So
Yeah, and a big part of it is the spread between where the 10-year treasury is and where mortgage rates went is way above what the normal is. So that's part of the reason why he believes we've kind of settled back down a little bit on rates. And but it goes through so many different perspectives. And anybody on this call, if you want it, just email me and I will send you the link to it. So my
John,
email.
yeah, John put in the chat also.
Okay, cool. So it's, you'll have to watch it a couple times, maybe pause it, look at the graphs, but I mean, he's got charts on everything, and
it's
he
makes
does a
so
great job
much
explaining.
sense.
Yep.
It makes so much sense, and it's very clear, very concise. Maybe a little overload at first, but once you kind of listen to it again, it's like you start kind of nodding your head along with the information he's sharing.
Yeah, and all the
Is it-
topics he goes over, if you listen to that topic once, go back again and you'll have a better understanding once you hear it a second time and look at what he's showing. So
Yeah.
Is it similar to his format in June? Like he covers
Yeah,
this? Yeah,
exactly.
okay.
I mean, he hits the same notes. The only thing I don't remember him speaking on was the average age of what was that? Like a household, like
the household formation.
a household formation age, and then he actually went back in history of 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, and said, if yes, it was the bubble was created because of bad mortgages and all. He's like, but also the demand slowed down, and why is that? You go back 33 years in 1973, you see the birth rate had declined for a stretch of time. And
Oh,
that same stretch of time is the same stretch of time that we had very little demand in our housing market, i.e. we did have it was a little bit more catastrophic than just that. But now he's showing you like, look at this birth rate from the 90s. Look where we are at 33 years old. Like we got a ton of people that should be historically entering the market for homes, and they're there right now. But the 7% scared everybody away, and once these comes back down, they'll most likely be back in the market in homes. But yeah, it's very same format. It's him talking. He's I think he's brilliant. I actually went to his website, which I did not sign up for because it's $200 a month for
yeah.
like more daily information on him. But I'm pretty sure he's pretty legit dude.
And
Yeah.
things I learned so much just listening to him, but things that I didn't realize, the average household formation age in the US is 33. So
Yep.
it's things like that you don't really I've never heard that stat before.
Which is crazy. That's your first time home buyer.
Yep. So you go back and those are people that were born in 1990, for today. So it's going through and looking at the trends of population and bigger picture stuff to show why real estate is still a we're going through a moment in time, but the future looks bright. So,
He talks about the builders, the underbuild. He talks about everything. It is
And-
so much information, but it is a very high use of your time to watch that a few times.
yep. And one of my favorite things, he discredits a lot of the media along the way. So,
Not
he-
only
he-
that, he proves it. He's
he
like from
proves it. He goes
14 to
back and see what they said here, and here's what happened, and here's what they said here, and here's what happened.
He's
And
like, if you listen to the media, you would have lost out on $250,000 of a $300,000 purchase in 2014 because it would have
Yep.
increased that much.
so,
Go ahead and keep renting.
and I think maybe, you know, I would love next time, maybe when we're doing this, I would love to talk about that. You know, kind of, you know, if everybody
That'd
kind
be
of
awesome.
watches through it to go through it. So anyway, that's something to watch probably a couple times, but let's go through and you know, here's where we're at in Charleston. So median price dropped from 400 to 390 from November to December. Now keep in mind, you know, a drop in the fourth quarter heading into the new year is not unusual. So this is not highly alarming to me. This is
It's
not.
not a major percentage.
Let's go back to 2019. Watch what happened, right? September, October, November, we went down, right? So if we go back, this is not an out of the ordinary move once you go towards the end of the year. You know, 17, you got a decline from the peak months. You know, you've got a decline in price is not that unusual. Now, these 2 months, let's zoom in again. So what's from a media perspective, and I'm not saying from a market perspective, from a media perspective, these are the concerning months right here, because look at what we did in December. We were up 1.3%. So still positive. But remember, last month we were up like 8.3%. So that is very close to a negative number, correct? So
Yep.
what's the media going to do as soon as the number turns negative? It's going
Prices
to,
are down 20%.
Yep, house prices are going down. So now remember, December of last year was almost 385, was a very high December. And all of this kind of lost seasonality because of COVID and low inventory. So it was a very tough comparison this December compared to last December. So that's why it's only 1.3%. But look what happened in January. We dropped to 360. We are not going to be below 360 in January, guarantee that. So we're going to be above that. So this is going to return back up to, you know, probably a 6% gain, right? So it's going to flip back the other way. It's going to be positive. You know, we'll probably be positive in February. March, 385. You know, if I'm a betting person, we're going to lose that positive numbers somewhere in here. And we are definitely going to lose it in May and June. So I think this number from a median price, and this, you know, Charleston will also apply to nationwide. So I think by the time you get to May or June, the media is going to basically say house prices have gone down. And let's say we go sideways here, and even if we reach 400, we're still going to show a negative 5% by the time we get to here. So just be prepared to handle the media questions once you get to here. But once we get on the tail end of this and we get back to this point next year, it's going to be a much easier comparison. But these months are at high risk of having a negative number on there. Now, you know, when we look from the peak to the trough, we've gone down $35,000. So $35,000 on 425, we've gone down, you know, roughly 7% or so, 7-8%. So typically we go down 5% because of the seasonality. So the extra, and I'm not saying January might be lower. You know, January very well could be lower than 390. So, you know, we might lose 10% from this peak to the low of the winter. Well, 5% of that is probably seasonality and 5% is the market. But when I'm going to say the market, I'm saying the market overpaid, right? The market got too heated, and that's that extra 5%. So
And is it easy enough to quickly compare the run up in 22? Sorry, on this comparison of us going down 8% can you briefly look at the median sale price now versus 1 year, 2 years ago? I'm trying to, like, what was the run-up increase? Like, the run-up was 40% as opposed to 20%. That's,
Yeah.
I'm
So, I mean,
guesstimating, right?
Right. And again, if you want to look at where we're at, let's go to December of 2019, right? So 3 years ago, we were at 275 and we're at 390. So let's just do some quick math. So that's 115,000 on 275. So 3 years, we've gone up 42%.
Yep.
So that's a 42% increase from here to here. But yes, it's a 8% or so decrease from here to here, but that's still up 42%. So we were up about 50% here. Now we're up 42%. So again, anybody who purchased a home back in here is still well on the positive side of their equity. It's just there might have been some high sales here that may be overpaid for their homes. But
Maybe.
in the long term, if most of these people are still putting decent amount down, have jobs, they're making payments, I'm not too concerned about foreclosures, based off the labor market. Foreclosures happen when people lose the jobs for the most part.
Right. You got to think too, they overpaid for the home at the time, but their interest rate is probably at a better or at even payment with someone who bought at the bottom of our trough so far, right?
Yep.
So like,
Yep.
Very
um,
important.
you got to remember the cost of living for a homeowner is what they care about when they own the home, not really the value until they have to sell it.
Yep.
So
And again, home ownership, a payment today is still, you look at rents are still going up. They're still going up.
what's
So
a 2-bedroom at the Boulevard? $2,600.
correct. Yeah. So when you look at median price, we're at 390. Again, as we go forward, I think we have some favorable comparisons in here, but it gets a little dicey in here. Price per square foot up 9.2%. So, that's still that same trend, kind of sideways action since the spring, but not any significant decline there. Now here's some interesting ones. So here we go. Percent of original list price. So we were sitting at 100% for a year and a half, right? So this is median sales price from original list. And now look at what's happened since August. So we're down to 97.2%. So 97.2%. Now, if you take back in time, that's lower than we were in December of 2019. So what this is a reflection on sellers overpricing their homes, right? And regular negotiation coming back into play for buyers, right? So it's a combination of both of them. Now, if you look at the average, so the average, we've gone from 101.2 down to 95.3. So again, we're sitting below where we were in December of 2019. So we're overcorrecting this, but keep in mind, a lot of this is because people price their house based off the spring numbers, summer numbers, and reality is they needed to start at a lower price. So these are all the price reductions we're seeing is creating this. Now, is this slowing down? Does this look like it's leveling off? No, right? This is still going down. So where we need to get, so I mean, I put a house under contract in Moore's Landing that D.R. Horton had the original list price at $950,000. We're under contract at $738,000. So wait till those closings hit, right? So is this going to all of a sudden turn and go the other direction? No, I think this is still sliding for a while until we get to the point of eliminating those houses that have taken 4, 5, 6 months to sell and started at a really high price and are lowering their price and getting back to you sell in 30 to 60 days and you price it accurately to start with. So this is still sliding in my opinion. Days on market, I mean, here we go higher, right?
240%. Look at that media headline.
Yep. So, I mean, again, we're up to 17 days, but look back to 2019. December of 2019, we're at 23, right? So we're still selling faster than we were in 2019. It just feels so different than this. Look at the average. So the average is at 37. Look where we were in 2019 in December, 57. We're still faster. right? So it's just that different feeling from where we were at the low. We're getting adjusted to a new back to normal. Months of supply, very interesting, right? We dropped from November to December. We're above December of 2021, we were 0.9. So we're twice as slow on absorption as last year, but we're still, compared to December of 2019, we're still half of that. So we're twice as fast as December of 2019, but half the speed of a year ago. Right. So again, this is still anybody, if you had 1.8 months of inventory and you told me that back here, what am I saying? Like, holy smokes, that is a really active market. But now after we've experienced this, what are we saying? It's like, what's going on? This is so slow. So it's all perspective based, right?
Yep.
But this is driven by, not by more sales. This is driven by less inventory.
So Anton, if you've got a client that's thinking about listing in January,
Right.
how does all of this impact them?
Price it right.
What's that?
No, I said price it right and expect it to take longer to sell.
Okay.
Have it staged right, have it ready to go, move in condition, price it correctly, look at the comps and price it with the comps,
Mm-hmm.
right? Look at the comps, and if you're pricing and your best comp sold for 500,000 last month, price it at 500,000. You got to be ahead of that curve, because this month of supply, it's also seasonal, right? We'll return to seasonality. So as you go to spring and summer, so let's go back to the last normal year, if we want to call it that. Look at the rise of months of inventory and then the fall off in the winter, right? So as we get to the January, February, this is going to start to go up again. All these curves have seasonality, but they're all heading higher, right? So, get ahead of that curve, get it on the market sooner than later, price it right. Instead of like, hey, let's try this, we might have to change the price. It's like, no, just go where the right price is to begin with. Homes for sale. So, we did have a drop off. And again, this is different than my calendar and I've never been able to figure it out. But I think, John, what we saw a high of around 3,200 and the lowest number I saw was 2,701. And I think you saw, I didn't see 26 something last week or this past week, but
I didn't either.
we hit a low of 928 on my calendar, which
On the
I
wall.
still don't understand why this is so different. Because that's a real moment in time, but you can see the seasonality trend returning, right? Like we had seasonality back here, and then, this was market driven, but the seasonality is returning. It's just returning at a higher level. So these curves that you're going to see are just going to be progressively higher. So yes, if you look at today's count, we're at 27, probably 70 by now. So we have triple what we had in March, but we have half of what we had in 2019. So it's all perspective depending on what point in time you're comparing us to.
And then once again, the higher population.
Correct.
greater
And again, like, if we don't have an inventory problem, this was an inventory problem. When you had 12,000 houses for sale compared to 2,700 today. So perspective real quick, 12,000 houses for sale with 50% less people. The population grew 50% from here to here. And we had 12,000 compared to 2,700. So we don't have a supply problem. And again, it's going to return to this normal. Look at this is like the normal level. And Barry Habib shared the national numbers, and you can see this same trend with a different scale over here on the national. We look like the national numbers, just
Correct.
on a different scale.
It's just gonna take a couple of years to come back to probably that 14 to 19
Yep.
chart
So-
wise.
So you see how we had the seasonality here on the way down on inventory, and then like kind of a stable period of time. We're gonna have this seasonality trend on the way back up in inventory. But builders are not gonna do what they did back here, right? They learned their lesson back here. Those people in management level were probably in the field back here. So they remembered what happened, and you're not gonna have the same repeat of this high inventory here.
Right.
Closed sales. So let's zoom in a little bit. So closed sales, so we're off 35% from a year ago. Now, if we look at the 1,258 we closed in December of 2022, if we go back to December 19, we closed 1,570. So we're actually lower on closed sales than even 2019. So
We also had 7%, 6%, 6.85. Like we had really high interest rates and pricing didn't come down fast enough, so there was less.
correct. And
I bet most of those were probably cash buyers too.
We went through a period of time where with interest rates increasing and prices increasing, we were losing affordability. Well, what's happening now is even if prices adjust down 5 or 10% and interest rates come down, we're becoming more affordable again, right? So we're improving the affordability at this point. So we're trying to stabilize everything and return to what you would see as a normal seasonal market. Now, we're not going to go down from here. I mean, maybe January might be lower, but eventually you're going to see this upward. Look how quick it happens, right? You know, January to February to March to April to May to June, you know, typically your June, July period, you know, are going to be your high points. So it's going to, once we settle down in January, which those contracts have already been written, you know, unless you have some wild cash buyer that can close in 2 weeks, those have already been written. So we're probably going to be lower in January, and then we're going to take this track higher, right? So that's the way the market works. New listings, look at that, down 23% from a year ago. You know, so this is what's keeping the months of supply in line is, you know, nobody's listing, you know, relative to the normal numbers we'd have. Now, December of 2019, we had 1,200. So we actually had more people listing their houses in 2019 than we did this past year. So we listed 23% less this year compared to a year ago. And that's our lowest, if we go back in time, let's see, it's even lower than any of these. So that was our lowest listing month in probably a decade. Right. So the last time we had a listing month that low was 2000. It's almost a decade, right? 9 years ago. So we hit a low on listing. So why did we hit so low?
Interest rates.
It's interest rates.
Yeah, there's no motivation for a seller to sell their home.
The motivation for the seller on a financial basis is gone. So as interest rates settle back down and we close that gap between their current rate and, you know, their existing rate on their home and the current rate, if we can close that gap, then it will entice people to sell their house. So, you know, it's an affordability problem, and the affordability has to do with sellers being able to afford a house they actually want to move to. Not only first-time home buyers. So yeah, so that's our lowest listing month in almost a decade. Pending sales. So pending sales, you know, off 25% from a year ago. So 1,149 pending sales. Now keep in mind, that's more than we had in December 2019. So we have less for sale and we have more pending sales. So, you know, again, and this will bottom out. Look at the seasonality. You know, as soon as we get into January, that's going to start to go up. Now we're not going to hit these peaks, right? We're not going to get back to here. You know, we might be lucky to get it, you know, back into this range right here. So, you know, unless rates drop dramatically, we're not returning to these levels. Those were abnormal. We're going to look more like we did in 2018 and 19. Dollar volume. So dollar volume's off 35%. So, you know, again, but we did 680 million in December of 2020, we did 590. So we're still ahead of dollar volume from 2019.
Anton,
Yep.
sorry, your point about more pending sales with fewer listings, is that what you said? With
Correct.
fewer homes for sale. I think that's really important, right? Isn't that speaking to the demand?
And it's speaking to this right here. So again, and I always say this, if I only could get one number, one piece of information to tell me how a market's doing, it's months of supply.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's taking in consideration how many buyers you have and how many sellers you have.
And I'm looking at the demand side being greater than 3 years ago.
And when you think about months of supply, you got the war in Russia and Ukraine, you have COVID, you have interest rates, you have, you know, elections, anything that is happening in the world it funnels down to this number right here, right? All of those factors that I just talked about affect supply and demand. You know, so this housing affordability, all of this stuff comes down to right here. So this is telling me the health of the market, and we are still a very healthy real estate market, but we're trending back to a normal market. So that's why we're all kind of feeling a little bit of angst of like, okay, well, what's happening? What do I do? How do I talk to buyers and sellers? It's this change that we're happening back to get to a normal market. Now, again, if this is the number that talks about the health of the market, look where we're at in 2009. 17.4 months of inventory. So we have a tenth of the supply, you know, months of supply as we did back here. So this is anybody who's saying like there's a disaster in real estate. It's like, no, no, no. This was a disaster right in here. Right. And yes, you know, we are on an upward trend, but we are not, you know, in a situation where lenders are just letting somebody fog a mirror and loaning the money, and builders are not, you know, building, you know, 1,000 houses ahead of what they can sell. And you don't have the investors out there. Everybody's qualified. People don't have much incentive to sell their house financially, you know, if they can make the payment. So we are not in this situation here. So, I mean, there are so many arguments. And if you listen to Barry Habib, he'll put it in a perspective with actual data and points that I don't make on something like this that gives you a comfort level. It's like, okay, I see the bigger picture, and the media is driving a lot of this conversation. And we need to have a counterbalance to what the media is saying. And he gives you a lot of information. And again, don't go to try to your clients and explain to them an hour worth of Barry Habib, right? Take the piece of information or 3 pieces of information that you have and apply it to your buyers and sellers in a way that is simple to explain and simple for them to understand. So this is the health of the market, and we're still in a very, what everybody would consider to be a seller's market, right? 1.8 months of, we never saw 1.8 months of inventory. So forget this 0.7, 0.8 that we're at. Prior to COVID, we never got below 3, right? So we're still faster on absorption than we were when this craze happened back prior to the recession. So we're still a very healthy market. And again, you know, showings to pending, you know, we still have buyers are out there. You know, they're out there, they're just taking their time, making decisions. And it's a lot of factors. It's because of the interest rates, it's because of the prices, and it's because of the season, right? You know, we have seasonality again, and the Thanksgiving to Christmas to New Year, the start of the year, it's back to the normal seasonality. So don't let this market fool you right now that it's like, okay, well, if you rewind back to 2019, right? If we go back to 2019, this is kind of what it feels like, right? And I'll zoom in a little bit. It's like, this doesn't look that much different than 2019. And everybody who was in the business in 2019, did you think that was a bad year? No, right? It was kind of,
Nope.
that's you. And again, but the seasonality is so prevalent. It doubles. So, I mean, your January closings, and I've seen this historically, if we go back in time, right? Your January closings typically will be half of your peak, right? So 926 or 972 to 1941, right? And you go to any normal year, 954, 1906, right? So we're down here, we're going to be, so whatever the January number is, you can pretty much plan on the June, July period being double that. It doesn't matter what year it is, that's the way the market works. And so whatever we settle in January, double that number, and you're probably going to be pretty close to what we're going to do at the peak of the season. And remember, it ramps up so quickly here. It's like you need to be working right now because it's coming. And when it comes, it's going to be a very quick ramp up, and you got to be, working to take advantage of that, peak market. Because watch what happens. That peak market happens, and then what happens? We go back down to half again, right? So you're going to go, let's say we get down to 1,050 sales. Well, then we're going to do 2,100 at the peak. And then probably next winter we'll do 1,050. We're going to still go through this seasonality.
Yep.
And again, look at the showings per listing. If you look, we're at December, we had 4.5. If we go back to December of 2019, what did we have? 3.4. So the activity of buyers this December was actually better than 2019. And again, there are buyers out there, and they're going to react when they typically do in this, early spring, summer. These numbers here, why were these numbers so crazy? Because there was nothing for sale, right? There were buyers and there was nothing for sale. So you're cramming the same number of buyers or higher into only a few houses, right? And you still have very pocketed low inventory. I mean, I'll take Brickyard, for example. Brickyard has what, John, has probably 800 homes in it? 750?
About a little over 800, yeah.
So 800 homes in it, and there are 0 for sale, right? There's nothing for sale. That is a very kind of out of ordinary number. But then you go to some areas, new construction, if you go to some neighborhoods, and there's a lot for sale. But you're watching, right? You're watching these builders work through their inventory. Though Moore's Landing has 2 left.
That's
So
it?
That's my understanding. They have 2 left to sell.
Wow. That's
So-
crazy. They went from 48 standing still last fall and they just slashed prices that bad.
So they slash these builders, these D.R. Hortons, Lennars, all these big builders. What are they going to do? They're going to lower the price until they sell.
They have
And
to.
now they've found at this interest rate and this price, these houses sell, right? They've discovered this price point, this house will sell. And so they're not in the business to hold houses. They're in the business to build houses, right? So they're cleaning up their supply, and then they will reset themselves and only build what they know that they can sell, right? So if they know, hey, we're going to sell 1 house a week in this neighborhood, how many are they going to build? They're going to build 1 house a week. And this was an article that John sent to me, not the Barry Habib one, but if you look at buildings starts, they have started, I think it was 16% less this past fall than a year ago. So these builders already kind of see, hey, we can't build as much as we were, so we're going to pull back what we're building because we only want to build what we're going to sell. And then the permits are down 22%. So what that's showing to me is like they're predicting more of a they need to slow down their business even more. So they're projecting in the future what they need to do, which is going to help not have a runaway inventory like what happened back here. So, another big factor for sales is rentals, right? So, and I don't know what the date was on this, but there were 932,000 apartments being built in the US at one time. The last time that happened was 1973.
I was gonna say 74 or something, yeah.
So my kind of prediction like on rentals is like those prices are going to come down once these apartments start to be completed.
Yeah, because they need to put people in them.
They got to put people in them, right? So watch the rental rates, and as those come down, a little bit of what we're gonna have to deal with is like, well, look, I can rent this for 1,200 or buy that for 1,400. Why don't I just rent?
Correct.
And if you watch the Barry Habib, he gives you a great tool to kind of combat that. And because it still makes more sense financially to buy for 1,400 a month than rent for 1,200. The long-term
Awesome.
aspect.
When hopefully the interest rates will be down a
Correct.
little bit by the time rents come down, right?
Yep.
Yeah, but if you got a
But
million rentals coming on the market, it's gonna
Yep.
gonna
So-
disrupt.
look at downtown Charleston. I lost track of how many buildings are being built right now.
Yep.
And again, these are not small apartment complexes. They're massive, right? So as soon as that is done, boom, here's another 300 units hitting the market. Right? How long is that going to take to absorb? How, like, so just watch carefully what's happening with the rents, because if rents start to drop, then that's going to be a little bit of pricing pressure on homes at the same time. Because everybody either is a rental, or, you know, you're a tenant or you're a homeowner. You're one or the other, right? And you have to have a place to live. So just a lot of dynamics that we have moving, but just everybody keep in mind, this is normal seasonality. And yeah, it's not like we were the last 2 years, but this is kind of the normal market where a house you don't just snap your fingers and sell a house. You gotta work it. Like I've been going to my showings on my listings, not the ones that I'm showing. Other agents are showing my listings because I want to get a pulse for what's happening on the market. And I'm seeing people from all over. I think I could check the 50 states off here in December. Like I was meeting people from all over the place. So to me, it was a good read of, okay, what's the motivation? Where are these people coming from? And I think what we're going through right now compared to the spring is people have a place to live. This is, in their mind, a better place to live, right? So in the spring, you were going people who were going to be homeless if they didn't buy the house, right? So the market has changed where the people you're running into, and I'm not saying 100% of the people, but a lot more of the people, they have an alternative rather than buying this house. They're just trying to improve where they live or what they're doing. And it's not a decision they have to make this week. So your days on market, I mean, keep in mind, and we're not going back here where we were in 2010, but look at this range in here, right? The average days in the market is in the 2-month range. For years, it was that way, right? This is not normal. This is not normal. This is normal, right? So this is as normal market as I've been in. And you have to prepare your sellers. And it's like, you might not sell this weekend or next weekend or this month. It's like, it might take a couple months to sell your house. So be prepared. You got to set up the expectations right with your sellers. And again, you go to different price points. I remember those $1 million plus listings. It's like, wow, this is going to take a while to sell. And I don't know if I'm going to sell it because you just didn't know what was going to happen. So this is also going to be price point driven, but 60 days is not that out of the ordinary to sell houses. And keep in mind, that's the average. Some of these will be more. Median days on the market, maybe a month or so, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. But, 60 days is kind of normal. So, be prepared to do that. Anybody have anything else to add to the, just
I
since
was
it's,
just gonna say that I bought a house in 2018 and it was height of interest rates back then.
Yep.
And it was like 5 to 6% for new
Yep.
home buyers. So I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind, that if we, that was the height that point. And if we look at the inventory and the trends in 2018, it still looked good compared to previous lower interest areas. So we'll see it come back to that.
and I'm off this chart, but in 2001, I bought a house at 8.25 on an ARM. But that was the rate. Like, it was like, yeah, I locked in at 8.25. Like, you didn't know anything different.
Yeah, I got
Right.
a 5.99, thought it was now it would be a good deal. But back
Right.
then it was, people thought I was insane because it was so high. But it was what it was.
So, what everybody's feeling is we're just going back through an adjustment back to a normal market. And just be prepared. This is where we're going to live eventually, back in this range here. Look at all those years. We're sitting right around 6,000 homes for sale. That's where we're going to go back to. And it's an adjustment back there. And the months of supply, we're going to return to 4 months of supply. We're going to go back to a normal market. And it's just, you have to behave differently as a real estate agent and have different conversations, because people's expectations, some of them are still back in here. I think we're flipping that, where there's enough articles out there that the conversation is becoming easier, but you need to be direct with your clients. And the buyer's the same way. It's still important to be home ownership. And that's one thing that Barry Habib really pushes. It's like your wealth comes, a lot of people, a majority of the US wealth, and I might be misquoting what he said, but I think 2/3 of the US wealth comes from home ownership. Because I mean, think about most people, a majority of their net worth is in their house,
Yep.
right? It's for better or worse, that's the way that society works. So it is so important to be a homeowner, you know, at some point rather than a tenant. And even if rates are 6.5%, you know, you're going to be in the house long enough that it's still a positive investment. So, well, thanks for everybody's time today. I'm just being time sensitive. It is 1 o'clock. Sorry for all the technical issues at the beginning, but I didn't plan on
Thank you.
Verizon not working. So I'm in the parking lot of CVS over here doing this. So,
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
anyway,
Thank you,
and
Anton.
everybody,
Yeah, watch that video,
you gotta
y'all.
watch that video. You gotta watch
Yes.
that video. It's
Thanks very
so-
much.
I mean,
Thanks,
it's so
Anton.
informative. All right, everybody have a great weekend.
Later,
Thanks.
Anton.
Bye. Thanks, John.